Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video I wanted to make a top 10 of the most overpowered abilities of all time, including those that existed back in the day. So unlike my other top 10s which focus only on what we have now, today we'll be considering every single ability that ever existed throughout League. Now I understand there may have been points in time when a certain attack was obnoxiously overtuned, and I can't exactly recall all of them, but empirically the ones that were notably egregious have had some kind of written record to them. Besides, top 10s are almost always opinionated, so there's bound to be some disagreement. Nevertheless, I'll be going through 10 abilities, not ordered by the way, based on how powerful they would be in a vacuum. That is, if you could simply extract the ability and then use it as your own. One more thing is that I'm not going to account for abilities that work in the context of the champion's kit and only in that kit. For instance, Alawi's passive is quite strong if you get multiple tentacles active, but without her W and E, there's no way to actually command them. So for the purposes of this video, I won't be including skills of that variety since they'd be functionally useless without external input. With that said and done, let's begin, and once again, in no particular order. First ability will take us all the way back to the olden days of early Season 4 and prior. When it comes to crowd control, a lot goes into ensuring the difficulty in landing it is proportional to the impact of it. Hard CC, as you know, can single-handedly render a champion's pressure, no matter how great, to zero, and so to balance it out, if the lockdown in question has a long duration, it's probably either very situational, inconsistent, difficult to land, short in range, or all of the above. Usually though, there are hard boundaries that Riot never crosses for the simple reason that there would be no way for that crowd control to exist without it being frustratingly unfair. Back in the day when constraints were a lot looser though, we had Sion's Cryptic Gaze. On a moderate cooldown, Sion would deal magic damage to the target enemy and stun them for 1.5 seconds. That's it, no condition, nothing, just damage and stun. What makes this ability so strong in particular is 1. How much damage it did, 2. How long the crowd control duration was, especially for a stun, and 3. How you landed it. First, 300 base damage, among the highest in the game for a single ability, and it came with a 90% AP ratio, or an exact 1-to-1 at its highest point. Behind only suppresses and knockups, stuns are the strongest crowd control in the game for literally preventing the opponent from doing anything, and it was a 1.5 second unconditional stun at that. Did you know at one point though, Cryptic Gaze actually had a stun duration of 2.2 seconds, longer than most champions' roots. But the worst part was that it was a ranged point-and-click instant activation, with a targeting distance equal to the range of most AD carries' auto attacks. Sion could immediately dish out a ton of damage and a stun. Without question, Cryptic Gaze was the single best non-ultimate crowd control tool in the game. It had a generous radius, fairly low cooldown, and it could serve as utility and poke damage all in one. No other basic ability came remotely close to old Zion's Q in crowd control impact. I can't think of a single AP scaling champion who doesn't want this. Heck, even AD champions would kill for a ranged point and click stun. Next ability is one that lasted for all but one day before it got hotfixed, and yet that single day was enough for everyone to unanimously flip off Riot for even remotely thinking that it was a good idea. One day was enough for people to lose their minds. Back in version 7.21, Galio was adjusted to incentivize building more DPS stats in order to lower the effectiveness of going full tank, which at the time was how you built him. And so, they drastically upped the AP ratios on all of his basic abilities, including his Q, Winds of War. Though it lost a fair amount of base damage, it gained 15% bonus AP on the incoming gusts. Most importantly though, the resulting tornado also gained an AP ratio, 3% max health damage per 100 AP. Seems harmless enough, it would take a hefty amount of ability power for this to really sting, at which point everything would deal tons of damage anyway. But there was a tiny oversight that led to arguably one of the most overpowered single abilities in League's entire history. It was 3% max health per 100 AP per tick. The tornado that forms at the endpoint of Galio's Q ticks 4 times over 2 seconds, meaning it was actually 12% max health per 100 AP. At just 2 items, a single Galio Q could do upwards of 30% max health AoE damage, not including the initial damage the Wind Blast would do. By the time he reached 3 or 4 items, he had a 6-second cooldown ranged AoE attack that could do half your max HP in damage. Theoretically, by 4 items, he would have death cap and hover around 600 AP. This meant you were staring at 72% max health damage on his Q. Winds of War was so overpowered, Galio had almost a 90% ban rate and like a 60% win rate for that one singular day. Though it lasted only a single day, it was hard to fathom how no one spotted that oversight before it made it to live service. This had to have been the most damaging basic ability in the entire game. Let's get back to the present day though and talk about an ability that everyone knows all too well, Katarina's passive. Veracity is definitely one of those abilities that's only fair, and I would be hard pressed to call it fair because it's on Katarina, who doesn't have the most overloaded kit. A simple premise, takedowns against enemy champions reduce the current cooldown of your entire kit by 15 seconds, including your ultimate. While it may be true that passives are often the most integral part of a champion's kit, in a hypothetical scenario where they're allowed to have veracity, it would be incredibly beneficial to a wide range of champions. Reset mechanics are routine targets of backlash by the community for good reason, and veracity is the reset mechanic to end all reset mechanics. If Katarina can do so much with it despite each of her individual abilities being far from the best of their kind, imagine someone who has even more than her. Next ability will be Malphite's ultimate. Some of you might be confused as to why I consider this a top 10 across the entire history of League, and to that I say it's similar to why I include an old Zion's Q. For a 1.5 second AoE knockup, this is one of the easiest abilities to land, and without any prior setup. Most AoE engage tools have something or multiple things that make them not as strong as they look on paper. For example, Amumu, Fiddlesticks, and Kennen have bigger AoEs on their ultimates, but it's contingent on being in position to affect as many targets as they can. Malphite's ultimate is fully self-sufficient. It can engage and lock down enemies almost instantaneously, all on a single ability. Nothing else is required to set it up. Further, because it's also a long-range unstoppable free target dash, you can also use it to run away, adding a bit more versatility to it. If you're playing an AP scaling champion, it's an easy one-button 100 to 0 setup. The cost of Malphite's base kit being so underwhelming is that if he had anything more in addition to this ability, he would be one of the stupidest champions in the game, and he's already a pretty stupid champion. While we're on the subject of abilities that are only tolerable because they're on that champion, let's talk about Olaf's ultimate. Having emphatically underlined just how consequential crowd control is in this game, being a universal way to render any champion's pressure non-existent for a short time no matter how fed they are, it stands to reason a champion who can ignore hard crowd control or debuffs of any kind would be pretty overpowered. Olaf's Ragnarok has a lot of benefits to it that would make for a great inclusion to most champions' kits. For starters, you passively gain bonus armor and magic resist just by existing. At its highest point, Olaf got 20 to 40 of each based on rank. When casting it, you gain a surge of movement speed against enemy champions for a short time and a huge amount of bonus AD, especially if you build a lot of AD. Also, you'll be able to ignore crowd control and debuffs supplied to you for as long as you are attacking enemies. What keeps this ultimate balanced is that 1. Olaf can only really attack one person at a time, and 2. He's an immobile juggernaut who lacks meaningful stick potential outside of his Q, which isn't all that reliable to say the least. But if you were to give this to someone who could stay on targets more consistently by way of either a dash or ranged auto attacks, they could easily maintain Ragnarok for a longer duration, making it one of the single best buffs in the entire game. Again, I know ultimates are the most important ability in a champion's kit most of the time, but even so, Olaf's ultimate is extremely powerful on anyone who likes to fight for a long time. I actually feel AD carries would enjoy this more than Bruisers, to be honest. While we're on that, I suppose you can talk about another ultimate steroid that would be broken, Tryndamere's ultimate, a classic. Undying Rage is the only reason Tryndamere can even exist in this environment. His kit is so outdated and so undimensional but artificially made viable purely because he can have infinite HP for 5 seconds. In a sense, it means Tryndamere's maximum pressure is guaranteed. The thing about pressure is that you have to find a balance between maximizing it, i.e. increasing your DPS, and maintaining it, in other words staying alive enough to actually exercise it. All of the DPS in the world means nothing if you get caught out and one-shot it, right? Thanks to his ultimate, Tryndamere essentially guarantees no less than 5 seconds of maximum pressure. He has the luxury to build full DPS by virtue of his ultimate promising he gets to make use of it for a base amount of time. Obviously, you can circumvent that by kiting him or chain CCing him during this time, along with the fact that he can only focus on one champion. But just like Olaf, many other cast members could use Tryndamere's ultimate better than him. Countless ADC players would throw away their ultimates in a heartbeat if it meant they had 5 seconds of guaranteed survivability. In fact, the majority of carry champions would enjoy this. It's a super ultimate for a reason. Much as I understand the reason why, I was sad to hear they were gonna keep it for its eventual VGU because it should not be in this game. Okay, let's go back to the old days again one more time and talk about an ability that may not look too impressive on paper, but is unbelievable when you put it to practice, Poppy's old ultimate. Diplomatic Immunity has her mark an enemy champion within 900 units for 6 to 8 seconds, during which she deals increased damage against that target while also becoming immune to all effects not originating from that target for the duration. Not damage, not crowd control, immune to all effects, period. Keyword, all, bold, italicized, underline, Comic Sans, all. Damage gone, crowd control pointless, tower shots irrelevant, peel tools of any kind, null and void. For 6 to 8 seconds, Poppy basically Thanos snaps the other 4 members of the enemy team and every nearby turret out of existence, only being affected by whomever she marked. The idea behind this ultimate was for dueling purposes, but what truly made this unfair was that the immunity thing wasn't mutual. Non-marked enemies could not touch her whatsoever. But Poppy could still touch them. The most common way the 5 people who unironically played Old Poppy used her ultimate was by marking someone else on the enemy team, usually someone who was of little to no threat to her, and then going after a different person on the enemy team, taking advantage of the fact that they couldn't do anything to her back. Imagine Mordekaiser using Death Realm on someone, but in that Death Realm he could still see and attack the other 4 members of the enemy team while they can't attack him. That's what Old Poppy's ultimate was abused for. She could tag the enemy frontline who just engaged on her team, therefore being far away from her, then beeline for the enemy backline, and then beat them down until they beg for more mercy. By far the most toxic ability in the game that 90% of the time wasn't even being used the way it was intended. You know something was f***ed up when Mordekaiser's Death Realm is a healthier version of it. Moving on though, I'm gonna talk about a simple yet heavily impactful ability in the game, Zed's W, Living Shadow. If there's ever a list of the 10 best dash abilities in the game, I would dare put this at number 1. The sheer amount of utility Living Shadow has cannot be understated. Not only does it function as a long-range free target dash, but the shadow can also replicate any ability used, extending your effective range and attack angles. Moreover, you can decide if you do or don't want to swap to the shadow, and if you do, it's a blink, not a dash, bypassing Talia and Poppy's anti-dash abilities. As well, if you decide to dash, the shadow swaps places with you, letting you continue using it to attack. I feel like any champion with a free target dash would instantly choose this over whatever they currently have because the sheer utility that comes from it far outpaces any other dash in the game. Imagine if an artillery mage had Living Shadow, they'd be sniping you from across the screen with 2 attacks for every 1. Lux could throw 2 E's and Q's. Lissandra can AoE root in 2 giant areas assuming she swaps out her E. So much you can do with this 1 attack alone. We're lucky all Zed's Q and E do is deal damage. Second to last ability will be Zack's passive, Cell Division. First and foremost, the death passive is quite nice. Despite no longer being able to do the teleport thing to save Zack anymore, having the chance to survive otherwise fatal damage is always good to have. But what really makes it overpowered is the regeneration. Anytime you use an ability, you leave behind a blob on the ground that you can pick up to heal for a portion of your max health, and there's no cooldown to it. However many abilities you land is however many heals you get. Of all tanks in League, Zack's one of the more ability spamming ones, but what keeps him from instantly healing back to full is that he pays a health cost on every ability cast, which results in less of a net positive than it could be. Even then, towards the mid to late game, Zack's legendarily hard to take down since at that point he regenerates way more than he loses. Imagine if this was on someone who could spam abilities even faster and more importantly, doesn't have to pay a health cost on their abilities. Imagine Cassiopeia with this passive, literally unkillable when she's spawning a blob every half a second, or imagine Hecarim spamming Q nonstop. Yes, I know he needs Warpath, but hypothetically, this would be insane on any champion who can spam their abilities more frequently than Zack. Having a potential revive on top of it is just icing on the cake. Definitely something that would be absurd if it was on a non-health cost champion. Last but not least, Garen's ultimate. This might be a lazy inclusion, but hear me out. The ultimate goal of most DPS abilities is to what? Damage and eventually kill the target, right? Doesn't matter how it's done, the goal is to just kill them. If there's one ability that's designed to do just that, it's Garen's ultimate. Demacian Justice is the most unconditional kill move in the game. Get in range of someone, press ultimate, they die. Doesn't come any simpler than that. Even if other champions can take out multiple people with their combos and whatnot, what makes Garen's ultimate so universally hated is that it's unconditional, close to instant activation, and has a simple yet excruciatingly effective premise to it. Finish off the remainder of a champion's health bar. Thing is, by rank 3, the base damage and missing health portion is so high, enemies can die even above half HP, not even being an execute at that point, it's just a one-shot tool. I feel like any champion with an ultimate meant for damaging a single target would much rather have this, or honestly I would take it to replace the non-damaging ultimate. Who on God's green earth wouldn't want an ability that does half your opponent's health bar in true damage on a point and click?
I'm the best player alive, I play Garen subhuman pig.
Alrighty, so those are my 10 most overpowered abilities of all time. I am fully expecting people to disagree with my choices and put something else on the list. In light of that, what would your 10 be? Let me know in the comments down below. That's all for today, so if you enjoyed the video, a like and subscribe would be much appreciated. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other ability discussions if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.